All right, everyone. Thank you for hopping on the Road to UFC Semifinal weigh-ins. My name is Chris Presnell, and I am here at the UFC APEX in Las Vegas, going to give you some live weigh-in results here. Glad you could join us. I have been told that all of the fighters from the Shanghai PI are on weight, so that's great news. That makes up about almost about half of the total Road to UFC competitors, at least the tournament bouts, as well as Yan Qihui fighting in a non-tournament fight. Just another minute, and we should get the fighters on the scales. Overall, we've got 20 fighters set to weigh in today. We've got 4 fighters in each weight class, from strawweight to men's flyweight, bantamweight, and featherweight. And then we've got a welterweight Road to UFC non-tournament fight between Samander Muradov and Jonathan Piersma, as well as the non-tournament fight between Yan Qihui and Ireland's Danny McCormick. And it sounds like we are getting underway. The athletes are starting to line up. Here we go. Looks like the first to weigh in is China Catch Wrestling's Shi Ming, fighting in a strawweight fight in the tournament. Directly behind her is Danny McCormick, fighting at flyweight.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Road to UFC Season 3 Semifinal weigh-in. Okay, first one on the scale for the women's strawweight, Shi Ming.
Shi Ming had a very, very impressive performance in her opening round fight. Looking shredded.
$115.5 for Shi Ming.
115.5 pounds for Shi Ming.
Okay, second fight is for women's flyweight, Danny McCormick.
Danny McCormick up next.
$126 for Danny.
126 pounds for Miss Danny McCormick.
Okay, next fight is for women's strawweight, Miki Motono.
Miki Motono up next in a very highly anticipated rematch with Feng Xiaotang. Matono got a bye.
116 for Mickey.
116 pounds for Mickey Matono.
Okay, next fighter for the flyweight, Raul Canales.
Another fighter who had a bye the first round, Philippines' Ruel Pañales.
$126.
126 pounds for Ruel Pañales. Second time he's weighed
Next
in.
fighter on the scale,
First time he will be
welterweight,
fighting.
Samanda Muradov.
Next up, Samander Muradov of Tajikistan. Non-tournament fight for him.
170 for Muradov.
170 pounds for Samander Muradov.
Next fight for the featherweight bout, Zhu Kangjie.
Zhu Kangjie up next. Very impressive opening round fight for him.
$145.5 for Zhu Kangjie.
145 pounds even. Looking good.
Next fighter on the scale for featherweight, Xie Bin.
Another featherweight, Xie Bin.
$146 for Xie Bin.
146 pounds for Xie Bin. Definitely a favorite in a very loaded featherweight tournament.
Next fighter on the scale for strawweight, Dong Huaxiang.
Dong Huaxiang up next. She was definitely a big favorite to win the strawweight tournament.
115 for Dong Huaxiang.
115 pounds for Guangxi Province's Dong Huaxiang.
Next fighter on the scale for women's flyweight, Yan Qihui.
Fight between Shi Ming and Dong Huaxiang is official. Next up, Yan Qihui weighing in at flyweight.
$125 for Yan Qihui.
Yan Qihui looking great, smiling. Seems to have been a great weight cut for her.
Next fighter for the flyweight, Dong Hun Chui.
All right, our first Korean for the day, Choi Dong-hoon, fighting at flyweight.
$125 for Chui.
Nice, 125 pounds for Choi Dong-hoon.
Next fighter for the scale for the bantamweight, Darmisi Zhang Wupasu.
All right, now we've got Darmisi coming up next.
$135.5 for Darmisi.
135 pounds for Darmisi. Man, he had a tough fight against Renozaki in that first round.
Next fighter on the scale for bantamweight, Bargain, Jie.
Now we've got another Chinese Kazakh, Bargun Jelaisa, also at bantamweight.
136 for Bargain.
136 pounds for Bargung.
Next fighter for the flyweight, UFC Sahota.
All right, now we've got, man, a dark horse of the flyweight division, Kiro Singh Sahota.
$125.5 for Kiro.
125.5 for Kiro Singh Sahota. That fight with Ruel Penales is now official.
Next fighter on the scale for featherweight, Shin Haraguchi.
All right, now we've got Shin Haraguchi.
$146 for Haraguchi.
Shin Haraguchi makes 146 pounds. Looks to be no problem for
Next
him.
fighter on the scale for the strawweight, Feng Xiaotan.
All right, now we've got one of the youngest fighters from this tournament, Feng Xiaotan.
116 for Feng Xiaotan.
All right, that fight with Miki Motono, the rematch, is now official.
Next fighter on the scale for bantamweight, Su Yong-yu.
This is an interesting one. Heard there were some issues getting him into the weight cutting.
136 for Su Yong-yu.
No issues for Yu Su-young. Big relief to all the Korean fans.
Next fighter on the scale for the flyweight, Angar Best.
But no issues. Heard there's some frustrations with the weight cut, but he is all good.
$125 for Angar Best.
All right, looks like we have our first break here. And we had 17 fighters fly through the weigh-ins. Looks like we are still waiting on... There's 3 fighters. We've got Tokitaka Nakanishi, Jonathan Piersma, and Masuto Kawana yet to weigh in. Everyone looking good so far. I briefly alluded to it, but a member of Yu Su-young's team had posted on Instagram this morning that they were very frustrated. They felt like they didn't have access to the perhaps the sauna like they had wanted to this morning for Yu Su-young, and that the time was dwindling down and they were very frustrated. Feel like they didn't perhaps have what they needed to finish the weight cut like they wanted. But as you saw, he was able to make the weight. No issues for Yu Su-young. That would have been a massive shame to lose that fight, or to have that to have a weight miss there. Yu Su-young is definitely one of those fighters that from the beginning, a lot of fans, especially the Korean fans that know who he is, really felt like he could be the guy to go all the way to the finals. He fought against Shohei Nosei in the opening round. And that was a spectacular fight between 2 grapplers. And I think a lot of the Japanese fans were expecting Nosei to get the win. The Korean fans felt like it was going to be a lock for Yu Su-young. Really a good fight for both of these bantamweights. Nosei very aggressive, offensive with the submissions in the fight, but Yu Su-young controlling the fight, controlling the back, winning the scrambles, won a decision against Shohei Nosei. So he will fight against Darmisi Jaupasi, who's a great wrestler in his own regard. That should be a very interesting fight. Can Darmisi hold off the takedowns of Yu Su-young? And can he do it for all 3 rounds? We've seen in the past sometimes Darmisi can kind of blow his energy too early in the fight and gas out a little bit. So surely there aware of the capabilities of Yu Su Young and interested to see what kind of what kind of strategy Darmisi has for this fight with Yu Su Young. All right. So, of the various tournaments, we've got the strawweight tournament. That one is a lock. The bantamweight tournament, missing Nakanishi. Featherweight, missing Masuto Kawana. Flyweight tournament is a lock, missing Jonathan Piersma. So, it was I don't know if I would say a concern. It was definitely surprising to me that the semifinals were to take place in Las Vegas. It is a big hurdle, first of all, to get the visas for everybody, and then the flights, the travel, the all of the logistics and the jet lag and adjusting. But you could look at it in the way of it's great experience for these fighters to come to the Apex, to be able to travel. We've seen in the past sometimes some fighters that have to travel across the world, thinking mainly about the Contender Series a couple years ago when a lot of the Chinese fighters came over. They regrettably went 1-5, I believe, in Contender Series. They struggled a little bit out of the gate. So I think you could look at it as a really positive experience to allow them to come to the United States, compete and road to UFC, feel what it's like, get to be in the UFC HQ, experience the Las Vegas heat and, the difference of food. That way, if they do make it to the UFC, they get signed. They already know what that's like. It's not going to be a surprise, if they're put on an Apex card, they've got a little bit of experience to lean on. And I think that's really what Road to UFC is for, right? It's to get these fighters that have been competing in their own countries. It's to get them a higher level of experience. It's to get them against different looks, even if, regardless of whether they win or lose, it still is good for the development. Thinking even about some of the countries that haven't been as successful as others, typically it's been the China, the South Korea, the Japan has dominated, with a couple very notable exceptions in Jekka Sarji and Angad Bisht. But even for the fighters, the Indonesians, the Indians, the Filipinos, even we've had some fighters from Thailand compete in non-tournament fights. It's really good experience for them because, if anything, it kind of just gives us an idea of where they're at, what if they're representing their countries, what kind of things do they need to work on. And a lot of these fighters, very young, still kind of getting their legs under them in terms of professional experience. It's really, really valuable. A great example of this. Here's a good example. You look at, two examples. I've got Sim Kai-Xiong, a Singaporean fighter who fought in a non-tournament fight season last year and had a pretty rough fight against Peter Daniso, lost by head kick, or I believe it might have been a knee. He's doing pretty well for himself right now. He's come back. He's won a fight, looked very good in that fight. And he also has a spot now at the UFC PI in Shanghai with the UFC Academy. So really, good good experience. And there's different ways that you can respond to a heavy loss like that. For some fighters, they may just decide to go back to their day job. And, I don't know if this is for me, which, no shame in that. But other fighters like Sim Kai Shong, they doubled down. They decided, we're gonna do what make the corrections that need to happen. He put himself out there at the UFC Academy, and he ranked exceptionally high on the Academy list. So really admirable work from Sim Kai Shong. And you can say some similar things about Peter Daniso as well. He has done pretty well for himself. He trains at an amazing gym in Bong Tao MMA, so they've got him covered there as well. But he's another guy, really young. Don't count him out. He could be back. And you could be looking at future UFC fighters from Thailand or from Singapore in these two. So I hate to use the just sports cliche of even a loss can be a win, but and maybe this is just the eternal optimist in me, but there's really a lot to be gained, even for the guys that lost in the opening round. I'll do another live stream later this afternoon for the weekly podcast, and we'll get into the fights a little bit more. But there's a couple on here that I just really want to highlight that pique my interest in particular. The first one would definitely be the strawweight fight between, both of these are amazing fights. Hold that thought. Looks like we've got Jonathan Piersma, the lone American on this card, weighing in for a welterweight fight.
Fighter for the welterweight, Jonathan Piersma. $174 for Jonathan Piersma.
So Piersma misses weight at 174 pounds. Now, I do believe with the new weigh-in system, all the fighters have to weigh in the first hour. And I believe they can have the second hour if they need it. But they do have to hit the scale, which we are just 20 minutes into weigh-ins here. So I'm guessing maybe he just wanted to get on the scale so he could have more time after the fact to weigh in. Looks like he's speaking to commission officials right now. Not sure what will happen with that fight, if they're going to go ahead with it at a catch weight or if he's going to try to weigh in. No word on that just yet. So at this point, we are just waiting on Masuto Kawana and Tokitaka Nakanishi, the two Japanese fighters. If you've missed any of the weigh-ins, if you're just hopping in and don't want to scroll through the video, you can head to MMAecosystem.com, and I've got all of the weigh-in results there. All right. So going back to what I was stating, I feel like the Feng Shaocan versus Miki Motono fight is a fight a lot of fans are looking forward to, as am I. I've heard some people saying both fighters are already UFC level. Motono, even I would say much better even than her record suggests, one of the top women outside of Japan.
Talk to Stan? No, did you talk to Stan? My bestie.
I would also, I mean, I've heard a lot of people singing Feng Shaocan's praises. Just 22 years young, trains under the great Chinese veteran Yan Chuanbo down in Guangzhou. Had a great chat with him yesterday as well. And this is a rematch where the first fight, Feng Shaocan beat Miki Motono by armbar. Motono had a lot of really great moments in top control in that fight, but Feng was able to throw up an armbar, submit her off her back, I believe in the second round. That was at Happy Elephant Champions League. So you got to think when the matchmakers were setting up this tournament, they wanted were angling for those two to get to fight each other, perhaps in the semis. So it's worked out very well. A little bit of breaking news for you concerning a Road to UFC alumni. This coming by way of ESPN Deportes Cici Legaspi, but it looks like former Road to UFC flyweight non-tournament fighter Naim Jargol Tumenden Barrel. He's going to be fighting against Carlos Hernandez November 23rd at UFC Macau. So that's your first fight for the Macau card. And it's going to be Naim Jargol's UFC debut. I believe he was scheduled last June to make his debut, but I think had some visa or travel issues. He had to bow out of that fight. He's going to be fighting Carlos Hernandez, which, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps these guys were slotted to face each other before, unless I'm thinking of someone else. Oh, no, I was mistaken. That his debut was originally scheduled June 1st against Andre Lima. That was canceled. I believe Tumenden Barrel had to bow out for the travel issues. So his UFC debut has been rescheduled for Macau. I imagine we'll start hearing a lot of fight announcements for Macau here soon. Naim Jargol Tumenden Barrel, I would say like definitely one of the best fighters out of Mongolia right now. A lot of excitement for him. He looked fantastic in both of his road to UFC non-tournament fights, and signing him was a no-brainer. It took a little bit of time. It wasn't an immediate signing, but he did get in. Pretty tough opponent in Carlos Hernandez. Hernandez, I don't believe he's got a winning record in the UFC, but he's one of those fighters that is a lot better than his record suggests too. Also a pretty good grappler in his own right. And he's fought several other Asian fighters as well. His last 2 fights were against Japanese really standout prospects in Rei Tsuruya and Tetsuro Taira. Curious to know how many of you, what some of your top fights of the semifinals are. Feel free to drop those in the comments below. I think I'm also very, very interested in the Shin Haraguchi against Jukong Jie fight. I think Jukong Jie really surprised a lot of people when his opening round fight against Tetsuya Ando. Just super, super aggressive, but also very accurate, efficient, and effective, taking out a tough veteran in Ando. Shin Haraguchi, some people, I've heard some people say they think that he looks better at lightweight. I'm not totally sure. I could agree with them, but he wanted to drop down. He is a shorter guy for lightweight, kind of a in between weight classes kind of guy. He could go either way. But if Jukong Jie can stuff the takedowns, it could be a really rough night for Shin Haraguchi. Jukong Jie is just, he's got it all on the feet. He puts his combinations together really nicely. Very aggressive, hits hard. And so far, his takedown defense has held up pretty well. But as we all know, Shin Haraguchi is a top-level wrestler. Very much a grappler versus striker matchup, as much as we can get. Both guys obviously have skills in all areas, but to kind of oversimplify the fight, obvious where each guy wants to keep the fight. I'm guessing right after these weigh-ins, we'll probably have the face-offs. So we'll stick around for that. The day after Friday, 2 days from now, is another big day for Chinese MMA. Why is that? Because we've got the UFC debut of very hotly anticipated flyweight Wang Zong.
Okay, next fight on the scale for bantamweight.
All right.
Tokitaka Nakanishi.
Looks like Nakanishi is up next.
137 for Tokitaka.
137 pounds for Nakanishi. Misses weight by 1 pound, but I do believe he has some extra time, and they're bringing out the box. Definitely seems a little bit frustrated. Oh. They brought out the box for a second, but now I'm not going to do it. Perhaps he's going to try cutting a little bit more weight, and then they'll try again, perhaps. Just putting the shorts back on. That leaves our lone fighter yet to hit the scales at all as Japanese featherweight Masuto Kawana. Did just overhear that it sounds like Masuto Kawana is on his way. Yeah, it looks like we're getting the scale.
Okay, next fight on the scale for the featherweight, Masuto Kawana.
Here he is. Featherweight Masuto Kawana. Man, the grit on this guy in that opening round fight. Took a lot of damage, but very gritty. Sounds like he is just a hair over, like less than a half pound over. So we're getting the box. Got it. There it is.
146 for Masuto Kawana.
Well done to Masuto Kawana. Makes weight with not a drop of sweat to spare. All right, so at this point, everyone has hit the scale. Kawana takes a big exhale of relief. Get some fluids in that guy. Sounds like Tokitaka Nakanishi is going to continue cutting weight. He was just a pound over. Not sure about Jonathan Piersma. 3 pounds is a lot to lose in this short a time. It can be done, but it's a lot.
So I think his mother raising him in a foreign country. referee wanted to make sure he just very good. So she didn't speak her name. Yeah. That's fun with my best friend in Hong Kong. She's local. She's born and raised in Hong Kong, but she's very Western attitude. And her husband is like a PDC, but he's my jiu-jitsu coach. Thomas Mann, the referee.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like at home with the kids. He speaks Cantonese. His first language was Hakka, not Cantonese. He only learned Cantonese when he went to Hong Kong from London, and his wife speaks Cantonese. And her English is like it's good, but it's not like top level.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys need to switch.
It's common language, like Cantonese, English.
Just Cantonese and English, but they're just switch.
Yeah.
So face offs, are we gonna do it 12? Yeah. No, that's it.
Is it?
Yeah, that's it.
There's money to save and money to make.
So it sounds like they are going to do the face-offs here in a moment, and they're going to face off Nakanishi and his opponent Bargangela Isa first, so that he has the maximum time to cut the extra weight. All right, face-offs coming up. I do hear that spoke to one Yan Xiaonan's coach Wang, or sorry, her manager Wang just a little bit ago, and the strawweight Chinese fighter Feng Chaozan, she is going to be cornered by Yan Xiaonan. The reason for that is because Feng Chaozan came to the U.S. about 2 weeks ago and has been training, staying fresh at Team Alpha Male in Sacramento. So Yan Xiaonan will be in the corner of Feng Chaozan.
Where did he say?
Another fight that I think is such an important fight from these semifinals is the fight between Choi Dong-hoon and Angad Bisht. I am really curious to see what Angad Bisht's his ceiling is. Choi is tough as they come. I believe Choi is UFC ready at the moment. He's a judo black belt. He hits hard, great striking defense. He looked great against Jinyu Shirye, which I think a lot of people thought would cruise in the flyweight tournament. But Choi looked good, close fight. Angad Bisht, this guy is a hammer, absolute hammer. really strong, absolute tank of a right hand, exceptional grappler as well. You really see this guy. He's got a really deep knowledge when it comes to the grappling. So I think if the fight is on the feet, probably Choi. He's gonna have the way with the fight. But I think if Bisht can get him down, which that's a big question. This is kind of a tough matchup for Angad Bisht. He is primarily a grappler, but he's got some really heavy hands to go along with it. So with that, anything could happen. You got to believe like every single Indian MMA fan is pulling for their man here. A lot of difficult outcomes for a lot of the Indian fighters, with the exception of Anshul Jubli in Road to UFC. Kind of just disappointment after disappointment. So Bish looked great in his first opening round fight, and let's see if he can figure out how to solve the puzzle of Choi Dong-hoon. See in the comments here, Indian MMA Hub saying, on God, you believe it. Gets it done. Gets it done probably because of the grit and hunger, but it will be an uphill task. I think there's I feel you on a lot of truth in that. He is a very gritty guy. He wants it badly, but you're right. It's going to be an uphill battle. But never discount the pure desire of a man who has nothing to lose, everything to gain. As far as these non-tournament fights go, I do kind of feel like these are very contender series-y kind of fights. It's sometimes been unclear what exactly is at stake with some of the non-tournament fights. Are they the same as contender series? Is it more just a kind of development-focused fight? Get two developing fighters against each other, get them the experience, and keep bringing them back. Not totally sure, but for a lot of the fighters here, I really do think that this is for UFC contracts, barring a really dull performance, barring an off night by the fighters. But Yan Chi-Hui, she's been in the PI system for a long time. She looked good in her contenders series fight until she got submitted by guillotine by Karine Silva. And then came back and won against Lisa Cariaco in the opening round. So I feel like if Yan Chi-Hui can get past Danny McCormick, she's probably got the UFC contract. Danny McCormick, though, former Invicta FC strawweight champion, I mean, you got to think that she's right on the cusp too. When a lot of folks saw that she was added to the UFC website, they were speculating that she would be in contender series. She was the Invicta champion. I believe she defended that belt. Usually the road is not really, there's not much of a road past that to the UFC. Really well loved by a lot of fans. I think that this is going to be a tough fight for both. And I absolutely feel like the winner should go to the UFC. As far as the Muradov versus Piersma fight, I guess we'll see at the face-offs if they're going to continue with the fight. But, Muradov was a guy that fought in I believe the first season of Road to UFC. Looked very good. Folks thought that he would probably be signed, and then he kind of disappeared. Fought a little bit on the regional scene again, kept winning. He's back. I got to feel like if he wins, he's into, especially that Tajik market. The UFC wants as many exciting young Tajik fighters as they can get. Very passionate fan base. Looks like the fighters are lining up here for the face-offs, and we've got Bargung, Jella Issa, and Tokitaka Nakanishi up first. All right, we are getting set up. Fighters being given instructions. All right. Bargung fixing his hair. Got to look fly for the cameras. Got someone smoothing over his hair for him. This is a good looking guy here. All right. Ready for these
This is
face-offs.
for the UFC Season 3 Semifinal face-off. First bout for the bantamweight, Bargain Jellies versus Tokitaka Nakanishi. Okay, next bout for women's flyweight, Danny McCormack versus Yan Hui.
McCormick versus Yan.
Next fight for the flyweight, Raul Canales versus Kiru Singh Sabota. Next fight for the bantamweight semifinal, Su Yong Yu versus Dan Zhao Kasi. Next bout for the flyweight, Anga Best versus Dong Hun Choi. Next fight for the welterweight feature bout, Samantha Murado versus Jonathan Piersma.
So we are facing them off. So it looks like this fight is going ahead.
Next fight for the women's strawweight, Miki Motono versus Geng Xiaotan.
And they meet again.
Next fight for the featherweight bout, Shin Hanaguchi versus Zhu Kangjie. Next fight for the women's strawweight, Shi Ming versus Song Huaqiang. Okay, last bout of the night for the featherweight, Matsuko Kawana versus Shi Ming. Okay, that's all. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, there you have it. I guess Nakanishi will continue to cut. Otherwise, that's a wrap for the weigh-ins. Looks like they are shutting things down and they have a scale off to the side for Nakanishi. He's not going to weigh in on the stage here. So with that, I will keep you all posted on the status for Tokitaka Nakanishi. But you can find that on the website, MMAecosystem.com, and on my Twitter or X. I will post any updates. But as for this live stream, that is it. We'll see you tomorrow. Also, if you want, join me this afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. in the East, for a full live podcast and breakdown of the Road to UFC Semifinals. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.